All right. Yeah. So now we're all set. All right. So we are on Facebook Live, and now I'm recording on Zoom too. So talking with Skip Hadden, a drum legend, an educator, an author, and he bought me a present. So I got to figure out how to make you a co-host here. Let's see. Under participants, we got this, and
I can also maybe put it in the chat. Maybe you don't have to make me a co-host. Let's see if we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Mine only has the make host option.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it might be because I'm in a webinar format and not a meeting format.
Just because, okay. Yeah.
What happens is I have not been able to figure out if it's, and I don't know if it's possible to stream live to Facebook from a meeting format. So that's why we're doing this format here. We have somebody here saying, "Hey, gentlemen, Rick Farago." Do you know
yeah. Flex speeders.
You know, we were talking last time. Drummers are a brotherhood.
Yes, brotherhood of percussion. BOP, otherwise known as. And somehow or another, I moved you right out of the frame. I don't have the thing anymore. Okay, there I am. There we go. Sorry. It won't allow me to put anything in for you to see.
Okay. Well, I can make you the host, and then you make me the host after you're done being the host. I'm gonna make you the host right now, and it's either way.
Okay, cool. Great.
You're a host now.
Okay.
So we're talking with Skip Hadden, drum talk, drum hang, stories, and maps. See, last week we were talking, but not Facebook Live, and it was really, really fun. And you recorded it and sent it to me. That was fun. And then I was telling you how much I like maps, and my collection is. Oh, whoa! Wait a minute.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Or do I have to move it over to this screen?
Oh no! I saw it better before.
Okay, it's on the bigger screen. I've got a monitor over here. But remember, we were talking about you liked maps, and I said, yeah, I can get that. And this is one from, wow.
That's going back a ways.
This is from 1888. Oh. And this area that we're looking at used to be 2 farms. And they got bought up, and it was made to be a development like Newport, Rhode Island, you know.
Wow, yeah.
And it was all at least 2-acre plots. It's 400 acres, the whole thing.
Wow.
And so people bought into this, and then they would like, it's kind of like an exclusive area. So let me give you an idea about what I mean.
That's a great map.
So in these sections here.
Yep.
Let me see if I can, it won't let me do that. Okay. Sorry, everybody that might be trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah, these older maps are really fascinating to me. I have maps from all over the world from, well, close to 50 years ago. When I was a kid, I wanted to travel the world, and it took me till I was 54 to do it, but that was 6 years ago, and I finally made it to Dubai. That was my first overseas trip.
Wow. Well, you could get further away, and then you'd be on your way back.
Yeah. So yeah, it's taken me all over Europe, Singapore, parts of Asia. I haven't been to Africa or Australia, but South America, Latin America. Whoa, look at that.
All right, now, so this place that we're looking at is right here.
Okay.
And so these plots, there were never all of these plots developed, although there's more now. We've been here about 30 years. So, and where I live is right here, this little triangle here.
Okay.
Can you see the map?
Actually, no. Right now, I see a structure with a dock. Originally into that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to show more than one thing, but it won't allow me to.
Oh, okay.
All right. So,
yeah, I thought I'd be traveling around the world as a musician. Well, I traveled around the country doing it. I traveled
okay.
as an yeah, okay.
All right. So that place that you saw
Mhm.
is right over here.
All right.
And then where I am is right here in this triangle here. But
Oh,
it's
nice.
it's these three plots that make that up.
I see. Wow. That's so great.
And what I do is I take photographs like a lot from this area.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up looking like, I don't know if we want to go there with this. I thought,
yeah, that's fine, man.
Okay, so
this is a so for people who are watching,
what happened? It was supposed to be about drums, but
yeah, I put drum talk in the thing, but it's just a hang. It's kind of like Skip and I met up at a cafe and we're drinking coffee and just talking about whatever. We'll get to this drum stuff though, for sure.
Yeah.
I have my virtual kit behind me.
Now, I can stop sharing. So are you having the thing back yet, or am I still running everything?
You're still the host.
Okay.
But that's fine. I don't need to be the host. I see you now, so that's good. Yes. So you sent me a video, which is really, really cool. Okay, cool. That Mark Copeland being interviewed. And wow, man, it was kind of like what we were talking about, some of the stuff last week.
Right. That's why I sent it, because it correlated a lot to what we were discussing, which is about concepts and like the stuff that you do with your neurological. Tell everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm known for anything, is for rehabilitation and Parkinson's population, but it's really anybody who has any kind of movement issue or cognitive decline, memory decline. So my goal is to rehabilitate movement, cognition, and memory, and music has started to play a pretty big role in this. Did I show you this book last time? I probably did. Oh, and it's virtual, so it might not even show up hardly. Neurologic.
No, not that one. I think you showed me the other one about the 2.0.
Oh, ADHD 2.0. Yeah, it just came out. This handbook of neurologic music therapy is really cool because it talks about the human experience. Basically, we all have central nervous system, peripheral, other systems, and then a brain, right? And they're all connected. So whether it's person living with autism, Fragile X syndrome, anywhere on the well, I'll just say the spectrum, but the spectrum seems to be changing, and I probably fall in the spectrum. Maybe we all do. I don't know. But ADHD, that's me. That's my son. That was my dad. And what I find is, so it's talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's in this book, but it goes into it in a scientific way as to what actually happens in the brain when we listen to music, move to music, create music, or it could be all three.
Right.
It could be all three. Could be any combination of two or all three. So it's interesting what happens in the brain. And what basically, if somebody's listening to something that they like, and that's step one, they're probably going to move better, especially if the tempo is appropriate for their cadence in walking.
Right. And that's where we brought up the AnyTune stuff, so you could find one, find tunes that people related to, and then put it at a tempo that they could also bodily relate to.
Yeah, which I love. And I forgot about that app. I used to have it. Well, now I have it again. And of course, it's digital, so the pitch doesn't change when you slow it down or speed it up. So it's cool. And
you can change the pitch in half steps if you want.
Yeah.
It sounds too blue for me. Okay, we'll brighten it up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and with ADHD, I just felt like I learned how to somewhat effectively manage it on my own, and my son has certainly done that on his own. He is just amazing. I'm totally bragging. MD, PhD, and I've never seen anyone as focused as him in my whole life. Well, maybe one other person, but the bottom line is all of these things. Well, not a diagnosis. Parkinson's. It's all subjective though too. It depends upon what I was going to say. Is all these things can be a gift of sorts, especially ADHD and maybe autism. I mean, there are things that people can do that other people can't do because they're not diagnosed or they don't have, their brain isn't wired that way. So not that they couldn't learn how to do certain things, but it just comes more naturally to some. Of course, there can be problems that go along with it. But have you ever in your career, especially as an educator, have you encountered people with let's say any of these things, and what do you notice? Like, some of the things people do are amazing.
Right, but I mean, they funnel them to me at Berkeley in our department somehow, because it's proven to be that I've been effective with some of these guys.
That's great.
And a lot of times they're learning disabilities, and there's an accommodation sheet that comes around that lets me know where these people are coming from now. But back in the 30 years ago or so, 35 years ago, people just showed up and you went, what is this? Because there was nothing about that. There was where these guys are coming from. Now, at least I have a little heads up about it. But it's a matter of like trying to figure out, and this is kind of like the way our conversation got started. The last time we got together was the beat the body, the brain kind of thing had to do with audio, visual, and the kinesthetic experience for teaching. So there was that 3 different things in the first book that I did. And that was me trying to figure out how I learned and then how I can help other people learn. Yeah. And so all of those things became part of what was going on with it. And I have to figure out what way they relate to what they want to do. Part of the problem ends up being, what do they want to do? Because that's not been determined yet. So it ends up being a real, okay, why are we here kind of thing. It's like, can we get everybody that you are in the room?
Right. Yeah. So the name for people watching, what's the name of the original name of the book?
The Beat the Body, the Brain.
Yeah. By the way, I ran out of books and I ordered more. They should be here 7 to 10 days. I'm going to send you my book as soon as
great. Yeah, you should have mine in the mail today.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Thanks, man. Yeah, I can't wait.
If you run out while we're talking, no, I'm just kidding.
I live on a dirt road. It's a half a mile to the mailbox.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of live, isolation. I was already in isolation before it was a thing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I quarantined before quarantine was a thing.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Boone.
Yeah, really. And I have a new axe, like an actual axe, not a drum set or a saxophone, an axe. and I chop wood.
Yeah. I do that too, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, and this whole thing about the brain is so fascinating to me. When we look at the therapeutic benefits, and that's a broad brush. I just painted with a broad brush on that one. But when you look at the outcome, well, anxiety. Let's just start with that. And oh man, I don't know what I did with that piece of pottery. There's a gentleman in England Ian, who has a diagnosis of generalized dystonia, right? So he has a lot of involuntary movement. Medications help to a degree. Deep brain stimulation helps to a degree with the 2 electric implants into the brain, so he can give himself a jolt and produce more chemicals, dopamine in particular, I believe, in generalized dystonia, and be better. But what really helps is when he's dancing or when he's making pottery. And so basically it's this idea of expression, being creative, self-expression through art, movement, music. Art could be pottery, creating something. So what I've noticed that has happened with music, because I don't do anything else, I don't really know how to dance or teach anything, but maybe I'll learn, is like he was telling me when he spins pottery, his tremors are gone.
Mm-hmm.
His anxiety, and I've seen this happen in front of me, with in the Parkinson's population, depression's the number one statistically. So it's generalized, but statistically number one non-motor symptom. Anxiety is statistically number two non-motor symptom.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see, and I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of times, a person living with autism has a lot of anxiety. I've seen it so many times, and then they get doing this self-expression, this creation through whatever. In my case, they're going to be doing music. Man, it's like they change before your very eyes. Mm-hmm. Many times, and it's a nice thing, because when you think about the outcome, it's at least a temporary improvement of the quality of life.
Yeah, and it's amazing because sometimes it happens. Like for me, a year or so ago, I had this one student. I had him for the 2 whole years, like 4 semesters, and it was one of those accommodation kind of things for him, learning disabilities, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, after a year, it was like a real slog for the first year. And then all of a sudden, about a third of the way into the last spring semester, he like became this other guy. Wow. It was like, whoa, how did you get that together? Because we were working on trying to do this through playing, but it was mostly trying to get them to realize that they could do it. It was okay. You didn't have to worry about that it wasn't right. And we discussed this last time about that, trying to remember that you got to settle for not what somebody else thinks you are, but who you are.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. And so those two parts of the maladies that you mentioned get to be where they don't trust themselves because they don't know what they'll do. And they don't know what people will do in reaction to what they're doing. But yeah, Louis Belson was a friend of mine. And he was the guy that signed off on that book, my first book. That was my master's project.
Oh, wow.
So they said, well, I don't know anything about drums. The only guy I ever knew about was Louis Belson. I said, great, he's a friend of mine. So I sent Louis the book, and that was my sign off, and that became the thing for with the publishers. But
that's great, man.
Later on in life, he had Parkinson's. And so he would be sitting there and it would be like, all kinds of movements, involuntary. When you put it behind the drum set, it was Louis.
It was. I didn't know he had Parkinson's until
I think that's what it was, but it was it was one of those involuntary motion things.
It was Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I didn't know it until after he passed. Mm. And then I started reading about it. In fact, somebody else mentioned it to me recently, I think. It was Chad Weckerman I was talking with on Saturday.
Right.
And he brought up Louis. That's right, because we were talking about Parkinson's and all that. So anyways, it's amazing because I had not seen any videos of him when he had Parkinson's, like playing. I just know that reports are, like you just reported and you said, it was Louis behind the drums.
Yeah, it wasn't any of those extraneous motions at all.
Yeah, and it, when you look at real quick about the what happens in the brain, the dopamine that's created from the reward of doing something you love, there are other chemicals too. But dopamine is the thing, though, the neurotransmitter that is diminished in production. I mean, it's produced in areas of the body besides the brain, but when the substantia nigra inside the basal ganglia stops or it never really stops, but brain cells are dying there. Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. There's three other things that you could have, but he had Parkinson's. And that's the most common for that area when it's dying. So less dopamine is produced. So you want to do something, but you have trouble doing it maybe it's taking a step, but you know you want to, and your foot's frozen. It's called akinesia, loss of voluntary movement. So anyways, the bottom line is you start doing this stuff and the reward chemical, I mean, there's other stuff too, serotonin, oxytocin, but dopamine is activated, I should say, not necessarily produced. Although it may be produced, the jury's still out on that, but it's cool. And it's like an immediate diminished movement, involuntary movement many times. Yeah. It's amazing. Good therapy.
And the information that was in the link that I gave it to the Mark Copeland interview is a guy by the name of Pablo Held, who's a great pianist in Germany. Has many recordings, and his drummer is Jakob Bergwinkel, sorry.
Okay.
Channel Joe Biden for a second. Now, I knew this drummer, and that's how I found out about Pablo Held, because he had been a student for one semester here at Berkeley with Jamie Hadden. And Jamie said, come on, you got to come over and meet this guy. And this is 95, something like that. And it turns out that he plays with this Pablo Held and a bass player. And they've since then done many recordings with Schofield and lots of different players, world famous players, and these great players from Germany. But he has this podcast that happens, it's on YouTube, and it's called Pablo Held Investigates. And it's not just drummers, although he's done Bill Stewart, Joey Barron. The latest drummer he did was Billy Hart, and Terry Lynn Carrington he just did Hurt also.
Oh, yeah.
And but many musicians, including bass players. And so I checked those out. And then I record the sections that I want to use, and I use those for drummers to find out what the players that they're playing with are thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's proven it's proven to be great, because it'd be like, geez, I didn't know. I thought he was listening to me play, and in reality, the guy wasn't listening to that at all. He was just paying attention to the movements that he made and the energy he generated. And it was like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting. By the way, there was some people watching. Sylvia in Monterrey, Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Hola, mi amiga, ¿cómo está? Denise Kane. I think she's Denise. Are you in England? I think you are. And my mom is watching. Helen.
It's a family thing. Great.
It's a family thing. But so, Mom, hi. We were talking, I think, before you came on, Moms. By the way, my guest is Skip Hadden.
Hi, Mom.
He's in the Boston area and teaches at Berkeley. He's been affiliated there a very long time. People, everybody talks about Skip because Skip is the man. But the conversations we have, this has been fun. This is our second one, but I feel like I've known you for a lot longer than a 1 week. So, but Mom, we were talking about Louis Bellson. That's Dad's favorite drummer. Yes. Okay. Denise is in Essex and UK. Well, thanks, Denise. Yeah, we're talking like drums and all kinds of whatever comes up in our minds. But I met Louis, a few times, but the first time I was probably like 12, so 1973 or so. My dad took me to a clinic. Louis was there with two of the local musicians, Larry Arlotta, Rick Kua, and we got to help him set up his drums, hang out, help him take down his drums. He was a classy guy. He was a gentleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you were friends with him, right? So you actually knew Louis and got to.
Right. I remember I told you about that club that I played that for 3-4 years. It was like my college education, but it was late night.
Now I remember. Yes. Uh-huh.
I came off the stand one night and Louis was there. He was there playing with Duke Ellington or something like that. This is early 70s. And I was like, wow. he said, "Oh, so you like Billy Cobham?" I said, "No," because I was playing a big set at the time. I said, "I'm into Alphonse Mouzon."
Oh, yeah.
And he went, "Oh, wow, I got to check him out." Anyway, so I met him there. And then years later, I take the students that I had a class about, it was called Care and Feeding of the Drum Set, but school called it Acoustic Characteristics of the Drum Set. And so every semester I would take 30, 40 guys on a bus to Zildjian, because it's only about 40 minutes south of Boston.
Right.
And Louis was there, and he was greeting everybody and going to do a presentation for the kids, the students.
Wow. That's great.
So, and my daughter went along that time. She was in her 20s then. And she went because there was like 30, 40 guys on the bus. It was one of those guys. And her, so it was fun.
Did you have to bring a gun with you?
No. No, she would tell them that I was her father, and then she had trouble talking to people. But Louis was there, and so I said, "Yeah." I explained who I was and that we had met, and he said, "You were that guy." He remembered from.
No kidding.
No, from 74. This is like 88.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he remembered.
Yeah.
And then so we met my daughter, and he was great with it. And so we started communicating much more. And he was still married to Pearl Bailey then. And so I told him I had videos of Pearl Bailey's brother, who's the great Bill Bailey, the dancer.
Oh, okay.
The tap dancer. So I sent her the videos through him, and so it became this thing where then the book and him being the sign-off guy for the book, it ended up being, you never know who you're talking to,
right?
Even if it's over a period of a lifetime. Like that guy you said you remembered from 40 years ago.
Yeah, Jim Petersack.
Yeah.
Mom, do you remember Jim Petersack? He was a guest drummer from Crane School of Music, Potsdam. Came in, Phil Natoli brought him in, and he blew my mind, because this was kind of like the other Buddy Rich in my life at the time, if you will. Of course, by that time I was really into, well, actually Alphonse, the 11th House.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, Weather Report. Oh, I want to talk with you about that. Weather Report, Chick Corea, all them. But Jim Petersack, man, the fluidity of his hands amazed me. So yeah, it is interesting. All these years later, who would have thunk?
Yeah. Well, it was in the roundabout way that you find out about people and the connections that you make or don't make. But the thing is that, like Alphonse Mouzon, I found out about him through Alan Schwartzberg. Now, Alan Schwartzberg, I don't know if you know about Alan Schwartzberg, but he was like the jingle king.
He was
in New York City.
Yeah, he's still around, isn't he?
Yes, but he's a great jazz drummer.
That's what
he's
I've heard.
About 5'2". He's a little guy, and I'm like 6'4", so it was always let's sit down and talk, that kind of
thing. Yeah, right.
But he played great. I saw him with Jackie Kane and Roy Kral.
Wow.
The vocalists, the jazz vocalists. So they were at a place for like a week or two at a time with that. And this is probably before he started all that studio stuff. And so he said, "No, man, you got to check out this guy." And his name is Alphonse Mouzon. And at the time, Alphonse was playing in the pit of Promises, Promises on Broadway.
Really? Whoa.
So it's like, oh. And so I get to see him in Cleveland, where I was. He comes to town with Roy Ayers, like a vibus fusion kind of funk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's in the Cleveland Arena or something like that, seats 12,000 people. And it was one of those early Black Power seminar things that was happening. It seats 12,000, 200 people show up.
Oh, jeez.
So I get to go up to him and talk to him and hang with him. And it turns out his management was from Cleveland. And he was staying in an apartment with Clint Houston and Harry Whitaker, the piano player. They were the rest of the band. And so we go over and hang out, and was up the street from where I was playing at night. So it ended up just keep bumping into these guys all the time.
That's great. Man.
And then he ends up with Weather Report for like 3 weeks, you know.
Right.
Because it was like it was like lining up for COVID to be the drummer in that band, because there were so many different guys that played in it. And managed to see him with that, and then also with Ira Krivda, you know. Yeah. So it was really, and then later on, he ended up being like this real kind of fly kind of guy with leather outfits and the hats and the huge drum set, and just like another version of Billy Cobham kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Never met him.
224-inch bass drums, just like Tony Williams' set, but like I think they were even yellow like the Tony Williams set, because I ended up buying a set like that. And 224s, you know, the huge set.
It's like then Tony's set on steroids.
Right. Was that color, but probably different drums. And it would just be all these great guys you'd meet. Transcending Sonship was another guy that I never heard of. His name was Woody Theus.
Yeah, I remember him with McCoy Tyner.
Right, but he also played with Charles Lloyd.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I've just been following Charles on Instagram. He posts some interesting things.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. And so because I was at that club, if I wasn't playing opposite them, then I was either, it depended, they had all kinds of music. Mm-hmm. They had country, Waylon Jennings. I mean, it was like, what is this? And then it would be like blues, like Muddy Waters or Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't anything that we could play opposite them. So then I would end up being, the blues weeks, I ended up being a bouncer, because I'd have to go sit with people because they would get so wasted at the tables. I'd have to drag them out at the end of the night. And or it would be like Passport with Kurt Kress. I don't know. But
I remember that band.
Yeah, and there was what was that band that a Southern rock band that and a couple of them ended up being killed in an airplane crash. They were really big, but not the times that we worked at the same place together.
I probably know. I just can't remember right now.
Yeah, well, I'm not helping anybody that's listening, because it's like,
if anyone knows,
I'll never forget what's his name. Yeah. So, but it was that kind of experience all the time.
Right. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's funny. I spoke with Alphonso Johnson probably a few years before he passed away, maybe 10 years ago. I was doing some 9 years ago, maybe. I was doing interviews for the local jazz radio station at the time, which was around for decades, and then they ditched the jazz. Maybe I talk with Odeon Pope. From, remember him?
Max Roach.
That's where I saw Odeon the first time. That was I saw him at the Blue Note too with the saxophone choir. And Ravi Coltrane sat in that night. But him and Peter Urson, because I knew Peter, so it's just easy I started with Peter. Then Alphonse. And it was fun because he was talking more about his acting career than his drumming.
Right. He was the drummer. He was the drummer in a club in a couple of movies, wasn't he?
Yeah. He had another role in a movie, or maybe it was a television show or a drama, but he actually played like a character who was not a drummer.
Wow, yeah. I didn't know that.
Did he play trumpet too, or something like that?
That I don't know.
I might have him confused with somebody, but yeah, he was fun to talk with. We really seems like a interesting, fun, dynamic personality. You know, it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, his experience is really broad. I mean, to go from Promises to McCoy Tyner and Weather Report is quite a, mind blower. For me, it was like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I talked with, who's the other one I was talking with? There were quite a few, but Mike Clark, he's the other one from, we were talking about Headhunters.
Right.
Mike Clark. So, you know what I want to ask you about is I first saw your name on vinyl back in the 70s when I got, I think it's don't tell me, Mysterious Traveler.
Yeah, but my name wasn't on the vinyl one.
So I must have seen it then in print somewhere and associated with that.
If you read like Downbeat magazine or something like that, there was a review of it. The album ended up being the album of the year, and then my name was in that.
Okay, that's probably where I saw it, because I always read Downbeat. Yeah.
Because I talked to Peter about that. I said, man, I'm on this recording and there's nothing on it about me at all. No pictures. In the back, you'll see everybody's picture but mine. It's like, what happened here?
Yeah.
You know, he said, no, it's nothing personal. That kind of stuff happens. It's happened to me. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did get the check though, you know.
Well, you know what I was wondering is, what was your experience like, if you don't mind talking about it, with working with Zawinul and Wayne, and you know the situation there? How did it come about?
Well, I had worked at that club for years, so I opened for them several different times when they were Eric Kavat was the last time.
Okay.
And then you mentioned Mike Clark, and then Mike Clark's second week on that gig of Headhunters, we opened for him also. Oh, wow. So we got to be friends there, and then they got different times that we'd be back in town, and we got to hang out. He and I went and saw Elvin together. Oh. You know, it was a nice hang. And then one night when he was with Herbie, another drummer that was in town for something else was Steve Ferrone.
Oh yeah.
And I knew him from being in a club with, what's the English organist, Brian Auger. Mm-hmm. He was in that before he did the pop band that he was really in.
Yeah, I forget what band it was.
Yeah, somebody out there maybe remembers, but so
it
we both.
No, I'm thinking of the wrong band. Yeah, that's cool. So this is, you're talking about Cleveland, right?
Yeah, of all places. So then we both played with Herbie. And he lit it up. I ended up watching him play because it was like two drummers, because then in the fusion thing, it was more drummers possible was okay. Yeah. And so then later on in an interview in Modern Drummer, he talked about that night and how it opened up what was possible for him. Now, Herbie loved him, but he never hired him for anything. Wasn't in that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it ended up being a springboard for him to do a lot of other things besides what he thought he was going to get stuck with.
Right. And my mom lives in Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
Cleveland, New York.
No, it's a little different.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, there's no steel mills there, I don't think.
I just had to say that, you know. I go off and think of strange things to say.
But true things, though.
True. And maybe it's not relevant, but then again, does it matter? Because we're just talking about whatever we want. So,
oh yeah, Rich Frog remembered it. It's Leonard Skinnard. Thanks, Rich.
Oh yeah, okay. All right, cool. So what about so the recording with Weather Report? What do you play on that album?
On two tunes, the two long ones, Mysterious Traveler and Nubian Sundance.
Oh, I love Nubian Sundance. I wore the vinyl out. For real. Yeah, I actually have two copies of that because I just thought the intro to that, as soon as it hits in the beginning.
Yeah, that's the crowd sound from south of the border at a bullfight, because it's not.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wondered about that. I didn't think it was live. Well, I did at first, but later on I figured out that I don't think it could be live. But interesting. Wow. Wow, yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, I really like that Nubian Sundance a lot. I think it was the first cut on the first side.
Yeah, probably. I don't remember now, but it was Mysterious Traveler was another long one, and that was the one where the bridge part is in 7 in that one and stuff like that. So
okay.
But that night that I played with Herbie Hancock was probably like just the same season that I ended up doing the Weather Report stuff.
Did you do any live shows with them?
No, only that recording. I didn't get the gig.
Okay. What about, I mean, was it fun to do that? Did you enjoy doing the recording with the Weather Report? those songs?
Yeah, it moved in and out because of being fun and being a lot of work, and then hanging out a lot, because I was there all the time because I was staying across the street at a motel, and they kind of like wandered in whenever they wanted to. So I got to hang out with Ron Mallow, the engineer, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff about the board and about people, and he was an interesting guy. So you never know, just hanging out and be like, wow, really? Talked about the industry and how they used to splice the actual tapes to make the edits in tunes, to have a certain feel that would make thousands of cuts to put the bass drum in front or behind the snare drum. It's like, man.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
but
they did interesting.
So now when you said they came and went whenever they want, are you saying that
they blocked out like months of the studio?
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
Of Devonshire Studios in North Hollywood.
So Peter was telling me a story about his audition with Weather Report and how I think everybody was hours and hours late on purpose. Oh, and I don't know, folks, so I don't know that this is the actual story, but I feel like it goes something like this. He's supposed to be there at, I'm picking a random time, 7 p.m. And they're not there. 8, 9, 10 p.m. they're not there. 11, midnight, not there. Right after midnight, somebody walked in. I don't know if it was Jocko. I don't know if it was Joe. Then I think maybe by around 2 a.m, they actually started to play. So I remember he said he was walking around really, really nervous all over around the studio or wherever it was in LA with his hands in his pockets, just like, and then of course they make him wait hours. I'm sure you know some really good stories.
Well, I didn't audition or anything. I got the reference for the gig. I was friends with like a lot of the drummers that came through that we've mentioned, but Roy McCurdy, the drummer that took Louis Hayes' place with Cannonball Adderley, was somebody that he and I got along, and they were at the club a couple times a year. So we got to be friends, and I would get to hang out with Cannonball, and he was a great guy. And so one night we're hanging out, and Roy says to me, look, we got to get you out of here, because this place was big, but it was really funky. And I'm saying, okay, yeah, sure. He said, you want to play with Frank Zappa, or do you want to play with Weather Report? And I was like, I think he's bullshitting me for sure. We were friends, but this is a little coming around the curve for me. So I'm like, let's see now. I said, I think the Frank Zappa thing, too much reading for me. And I said, yeah, Weather Report, I really like those guys. And that was the end of the conversation. And a couple months later, I was getting ready to go somewhere. So I took a shower, and I come out of the shower, and my mother-in-law at the time says, the weatherman called. And I'm like, what? Why would a weatherman call? So I'm getting dressed and going out, and I said, did they say Weather Report? And she said, yeah, maybe that's what it is. He said he'd call back. I'm like, geez. So I'm watching my career flash in front of me, for the telephone rings.
The weatherman.
It was kind of like Peter walking around for hours waiting for him. And it turns out it was the management guy, Bob DeVere from Weather Report. He said, we were referred by, Roy McCurdy. He said, he told me that you played like 3 Tony Williamses, and we needed somebody with that kind of energy. Because if nothing else, what I played with was a lot of energy. I was able to make this, whatever was going on, go from like 0 to 90, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
I'm just going to interject real quick. I'm sorry, but that song, I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much, because of the energy in it. And right from the first hit, man, it's like boom.
And it's fast too.
Yeah, I love it.
And so Ishmael Wilburn, his name was Butch, he's playing the simple backbeat thing. And he's playing a bigger rock kind of set. And I'm playing a little 18-inch Slingerland set, with Paiste cymbals, 14-inch sound edge kind of things, 15-inch maybe. And it's ding, 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 and I could play with a lot of articulation. And so it was really clear, but we ended up doing that for like about 8 hours that first day. And it was after I got off the plane, but he called me like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I had a gig that night at that same club, and I couldn't get anybody to take my place because that's not how that worked with the people that I played with. So I played the gig and then took my drums to the airport. You could then travel with your stuff, got on the plane, went to LA. They picked me up with a truck. And the 2 guys that picked me up, actually, I knew because they were from Cleveland. I was like, what is this? So they picked me up at a U-Haul. They take me to Devonshire. And I played all day long, just doing that one tune.
Wow, that's a great story.
But it worked out great. And then we wouldn't, I think the next night we went to Joe's house. He had this great stucco house at the end of a cul-de-sac. His Bentley was in the driveway. I mean, it was a little bit out of my frame of financial reference, this whole thing. And it was on a cliff that overlooked the parking lot at the Rose Bowl. That's where he lived in Pasadena. So it was kind of laid out. And so we listened to recordings and stuff, and where there were source recordings from Africa and stuff like that. This is what he wanted, but not these beats. He wanted this energy. And which is why Bob DeVere sent me out there in the first place, because that was the reference that Roy McCurdy made for them to do it. So when I talked to Bob DeVere, he said, we heard you played good and all that kind of stuff. And I said, yes. He said, can you send us a tape? I said, I'd be more than happy to send you a tape, because I was recording like every night what I did.
Yeah.
But I said, it's not going to be the same. It's not, the music I'm playing is really loose. It's even looser than Weatherport. And they're great players. It was Bill DeArango, who had been the New Star Award in 1946 with Miles and Ben Webster and all those kind of guys. He was a really great player. And Ernie Krivda was an excellent player.
Really?
No bass player, just the trio.
Wow.
But I said, it's going to be really different. I said, but sure, I'll send you the tape. He said, no, wait a minute. I'll call you back in a minute. I went, oh no. Here I am again, waiting by the phone. And so another 15, 20 minutes, the phone rings, it's him. He said, there's a ticket at the airport. There's a flight for you at 9:12 tomorrow morning to LA.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And that was it. And I stayed there for 10 days doing those. We did other tunes. One of them ended up being not on the recording. It's called Miroslav's tune that you can listen to on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
And that's pretty much me playing. There's both of us playing, and then Butch lays out, and then I take it into 6/4. And it's pretty much just me playing on that. So that's my favorite. No, it was like a little demonstration of what I could do. And then a couple of years later, Miroslav gets a contract, and he's doing a recording, and he does it, and he has some gigs lined up. He finds me because we got along, because he got canned while he was at the studio.
Oh.
About 3 or 4 days into it, I go there, and he's sitting in the car in the parking lot. The whole day. Oh, he and Joe had it out.
Oh.
And so he remembered that we got along, and the reference for him was that I was somebody supportive from way before. So this thing about you never know what the relationships are. So I went to New York and did some gigs with him.
Oh, cool.
And it was all based on that one, the one where he has that fur jacket on, and he's playing an electric custom bass. And
okay. So he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is he still playing?
I would imagine so. He's in, I think he's back in Austria.
Yeah. I only saw him once. It was Chick Corea and Roy Haynes.
Yeah.
Back in 82 in Evanston, Illinois.
Yeah, that was a redo of the Now He Sings and Now He Sobs music.
Yeah, that's my only time seeing Roy and Miroslav, but that was beautiful. I always liked the way Miroslav played. He's done a lot over the years. That's That's cool. You did some work with him. You did some live gigs with him.
Yeah, he was very good to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we were rehearsing at his parents' house. He had bought them a place in Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was living in Cincinnati then, and I drove, talk about commuting to a gig. I drove to New York from Cincinnati and got there and set my drums up and did the rehearsal.
It's commitment, brother. It's commitment.
Yeah.
So let's go back for a minute. I was talking with Chad Wackerman the other day, and he made an interesting statement about something Frank Zappa said to him on an airplane ride somewhere. And Frank was talking about, why does everyone play in 4/4? Why is 4/4 a thing? People don't talk in 4/4. I don't hear things in 4/4. I hear things in 21 and 17 and 11 and 13 and 9 and whatever. And I've still been thinking about that since. If you talk with Anthony Garon over, I think he's in Europe, in this book that I mentioned, well, 4/4 is kind of a thing because, the rhythms of life. Not that you can't walk in 21, but you have to just do it at a tempo that works. And then, at the end of 21, you start with your other foot.
Mm-hmm. Right. But that's the connection.
Yeah. And so it's a bigger picture. It's really like more of a view from above, kind of like this set here, right? The helicopter view.
Well, we're bipeds.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, so drumming for sure, that was to support communication, and then later on military stuff. So it was like, isn't anybody marching in 2160?
No. No.
So that was part of the reference also. And the other connection is that rhythmically what's happening is really closely tied to the language that you speak. So the inflections and the accents and the rhythms that if you listen to somebody from Karmala in South India, mm-hmm. that's going to have a whole different cadence to it than somebody from Belize, mm-hmm. or somebody from Sao Paulo. It's all going to be a different flow. It isn't necessarily going to be in 2 or 4, but
Right.
So I think it's a combination of those factors about you only got 2 hands, 2 feet. Originally, the feet weren't so much involved. It was both hands.
Right.
So that was where it came out. But and in the case of like Carnatic music or something like where you're going to play Kanjira or Mridangam, something like that, where you're going to use your fingers, it's more like playing piano.
Mm-hmm.
And then that fits a little bit more into being able to use 10 digits or 2 sets of 5, because that's what you got.
Right. Hadn't thought about that. It's interesting. I love these conversations because you make me think. But
it's my job.
I really enjoy it because I feel like in my life, I had my upbringing was my parents really loved big band. So
remember, your mother's on this call.
Yep, she's here.
Okay.
So Mom, thank you, because you and Dad got me turned on to Woody, Stan Kenton, and Dorsey's, Artie Shaw, and Louis Bellson had his big band. He had some great recordings that came out in the 60s, like especially the 60s. Love some of that Impulse stuff he put out. And then I remember sitting with my parents, and I was 10 years old, and John Van Olen was the drummer with Kenton that night.
Right.
Playing in a restaurant here. It's a little restaurant. They fit the whole band on the stage. It was unbelievable. And Stan came over and sat at the table. And my dad's like, who's your favorite band? Stan's like, Tito Puente. Well, then our house became filled with Latin, and so then I got into that, and I was already into Buddy. Of course, he was my first big influence from way back. But then my 7th grade not my actual teacher, but he co-taught on the other team with the 7th grade English teachers. So everybody knew everybody. This very small town. He says, "You're a drummer. You got to check out Chick Courier and Billy Cobham." So I started with fusion. Once I got out of the big band, I went right to fusion. And what I'm trying to get around to saying is I went backwards. I started with what was happening right then. Weather Report, Return to Forever, Billy Cobham. That's how he said his name. And then I started to get in. I worked backwards over the next. I'm still going backwards because then I went back into late train, the late quartet of, or quintet, Miles, Herbie, Ron, Tony, and Wayne. And then kept going back, and there's George Coleman on Four and More, and there's George Coleman on Live in Europe, and then Miles in the 50s, and Train in the 50s, and now I'm going back to like really discovering more about the roots of a lot of this stuff. Like what you were talking about is hands. Hands were used for communication in so many different things, but language is interesting. I never thought about it in terms of the language you speak can be highly influential in the music that's created. So this is like history. It's so cool.
Well, if you go to Spain and then you don't know the language, you start just listening to all the rhythms and what's going on with that. The rapidity that what they speak with is amazing.
Yeah. I haven't been to Spain yet.
Well, I mean, it could be anything that's foreign. You're going to hear it. If you go to Poland, it's going to be another whole different cadence also. Sounds are totally different. If you go to India, it's the same sort of thing. Or I don't care where you go. You can go to Georgia and be able to understand what somebody's saying because of the accent.
I've been in Mexico a lot. So that's in Argentina. I also had interesting musical experiences there, but in Mexico, it's really great. I remember this one. I used to stay this couple that I stayed with in San Luis Potosi. I've been all over the country, but in that city, I'll stay with them. And it was Jessica's birthday, so they had a big party, and I had to catch a plane at like 6:00 the next morning to come home. And it was, so I'd already, they had a band at the birthday party, and they were great. It was just great. Well, at 11 p.m., and I went up to bed at like 10. I was like, they're having a party at the house. About 11 o'clock, I hear boom, boom, cymbals and a big bass drum. And it was a mariachi band that came in. So I got out of bed, I come down, I have a video of this. This is like real deal mariachi stuff. Mm-hmm. It was so cool. Just so cool. I love it. It's one of my favorite experiences musically is to watch this. So what's your schedule like? I have about 10 more minutes before I need to go. Because I'm going to meet with a client, a patient at 12:30 here, just down the road. I don't want to keep you too long, but I'll keep you as long as I can. So that's self-indulgent, isn't it?
Well, that's okay. I mean, I have some time, but I have meetings, and after our get together, I have a department meeting, and then I have this really great student from Taranto in the south of Italy. This kid I've known for like 5-6 years. I was there and met him and his dad, and this kid is going to be something.
Great.
He's not old enough to go anywhere and come here and blow everybody away because he can't function like on his own, really. He probably could. He's a really bright kid. He plays piano, saxophone, and drums. Plays it great. So we're working on all kinds of different stuff. So that's great.
Oh, that's cool. We have some other friends joining. There's a couple people that came in one, but Adriana Silva Mendoza, right on the border of Belize.
Oh, right.
She's in Chetumal, Mexico.
Wow.
And I was there teaching a couple of years ago, and we had a blast. And then she took us on a tour of all these centuries-old structures. It was so amazing. Yeah. I That's the country I'll go back to when I can get back there and help some people. But it makes me, I was talking with, well, it's been like a year. I've been talking with Bobby Thomas Jr. We mentioned this, we talked about this last time. At some point, we'll probably have a little musical project, and it would be geared towards healing, if you will. Music as therapy. And this, he comes from a diverse musical background and hand percussion, which I really don't have experience with that. But I feel like that would help me to become a more well-rounded educator in the stuff that I do. To have an understanding of, that feeling, tactile feeling of contact with the percussive instrument. Skip, maybe we should do something, man. Project time.
Ooh, are we going to have a lunch?
We'll have lunch too. Lunch and music. Oh, this is great. This is fun. So, when did the classes start at Berkeley? Have they started yet?
Yeah, they started on Monday.
Okay, so you're teaching Berkeley College of Music, and you're is it all online right now?
The classes are online. The private lessons are live in person.
Okay, that's cool. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, was last time too.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we should do it again. I'll shoot you a note. I'll look for your book too, by the way. As soon as
it's
I get
your
mine,
mailbox.
I'll send mine to you. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely hit that on the way out to see this patient. All right. I don't really feel like going anywhere, but I should.
Well, you and have clients. Don't you need to get ready to do that?
Everything's all ready. Just got to hop in the car and go. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's part of it. Going there will, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not too far away. Well, talking with you it's really good to meet you and to get to know you and learn from you. I love hearing stories, but I also like when we get talking about the brain and mindset, and I can't wait to read the book. I mean, I'll devour that. If we talk a week from now, I will have read it at least once.
Yeah, there's a lot of drum stuff in it. It's not so much text.
That's fine.
The Profiles in Drumming book is 50, 60,000 words. It's 165 pages, but that's biographical history stuff and transcriptions. This is techniques and body control for the drum set, the one that's in your mailbox.
Okay. Well, see, that all of it is relevant for me personally. I'm very interested in this, and because when we look at movement, well, I'm looking forward to reading it for a lot of reasons, but I think it's going to give me a lot more insight on this, along with learning independence, learning coordinating movement. We do it with people when we're crawling on the floor with people sometimes, because I have this little workout. I'm going off on a tangent for a second. In fact, it was in Mexico. I remember this one in Monterrey. I was the keynote, so I do this speech, 90 minutes, suit and tie, run out, get my workout clothes on, come back in, 55 people ready to work out. Most of them have Parkinson's. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just said, well, what are your main challenges? I have a translator with me and all that. If we fall down, we need to know how to get up.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, we're going to do because, statistically, complications from a fall is the number one cause of mortality in that population. It's not the fall, but it could be a complication, breathing issue, whatever. So anyways, we get there and we do the floor is our friend workout. That's what I call it. The floor is your friend. If you go down, hopefully you're not hurt, or if you are, it's not bad. And then you navigate back to safety. Well, this is brain changing stuff, because you're just leveraging your body a certain way to be able to roll over, which some people hadn't rolled over in a long time. And then when they learned how, and it's not rocket science, but they just didn't think of doing it this way, whoa. And then we get into, crawling, getting up on all fours, crawling, pulling just like a baby, just like my granddaughter who's downstairs right now, 3 months old. She's just about ready to get on all fours. She's almost there,
Right. Take her to the class.
It's so, yeah. Here's how you do it, folks.
Yeah. She's going to demonstrate for us.
Yeah, she is our educator. But then we get into other things too with once they're standing or maybe sitting and doing coordination of limbs in different ways. And it's so good for the brain. And it just helps in other areas of life too. Yeah. Plus self-confidence, empowerment, being, believing in yourself. And all that stuff is very beneficial.
Well, it all ends up being like trying to get everything in sync. Your emotions and your the signals you're trying to send to make that happen. So it's kind of like learning how to dance, I would imagine. And that's some of the greatest drummers who were dancers.
Yeah.
Buddy Rich, Steve Gadd, all those guys.
So I forgot Steve Gadd was a dancer. I knew that. Forgot. Buddy, I knew Sammy Davis.
Right.
He could do my mom and dad got to hang out with Sammy Davis. I never saw him or anything, but they have good stories. We'll have to talk about that another time. Giovanni just joins us. Hey, brother, I owe you a phone call, and that's coming tomorrow.
Because we're going to leave now.
Yeah, we have to leave in a minute, and it's a really busy day today, actually. So, but I got you tomorrow, brother. Well, hey, man, let's do it again.
All right.
I'll be in touch.
Let me know. These Wednesdays are the better days for me.
Maybe we just do a regular Wednesday at 11 thing. I'm down for it if you are, man. Well, you and I will be in touch.
All right. Yeah, the thing too would be see if anybody, see you, Rich. If somebody wants to know about something, might get a little more focus about it too, instead of just what we did is fun for us. I don't know how much fun it is for other people. So,
well, I'm sure that there are people who are going to enjoy this. If they haven't seen it, they will. But I think that's a great idea. We can make this into a thing because you just have so much to offer.
I can talk a lot. Yeah.
No, it's really great. We'll talk about that, and I could even reach out ahead of time and post ahead of time. Here's some questions. What do you want to know? And then we'll just start focusing. And it's a great idea. We're just starting this, folks. This is our first live together. Last week we talked and just hung out and talked, and we'll do it again.
All right. Thanks, Karl.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Skip. Okay, I'll be in touch really soon, and I'll see you. Thanks, everyone who joined us. Thanks, Mom, and Giovanni, Adriana, Denise, Sylvia. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.